All right, let's just jump right into this. Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're looking at Shermans versus Panthers, 4 days of hell in the Hürtgen Forest. And I mean, we are plunging straight into one of the most grueling, frozen, and honestly, just mud-soaked meat grinders of the entire Second World War. Picture this. It's November 4th, 1944. Deep in the treacherous Hürtgen Forest, the U.S. 28th Infantry Division finds itself trapped in an absolute nightmare. What we're going to do today is zoom in on a microscopic yet unbelievably intense engagement that perfectly captures the brutal reality of armored warfare. We'll break the whole thing down so you can see exactly how this terrifying event unfolded.
To really grasp the sheer terror on the ground, you have to put yourself in this situation. Major Robert T. Hazlitt is watching in absolute horror as a massive German Panther tank just powers out of the tree line and rolls directly toward a foxhole holding his men. He screams a warning, but the Panther's tracks just roll right over the hole and keep on going. Hazlitt grabs his radio, ordering an immediate fallback. His battered infantry is completely exposed out there. If they're going to survive this, they need immediate American armor support. But the reinforcements they're counting on, the 707th Tank Battalion, are a mile away, literally drowning in a sea of thick, churning forest mud.
Now we're dealing with a really stark mismatch in engineering and sheer power here. The M4 Sherman, it was a reliable, fast-medium tank, sure, but was heavily out-armored and vastly outgunned by the German big cats, like the 45-ton Panther. And platoon leader Lieutenant Raymond Fleig, well, he's riding right on top of the lead Sherman in that mud-trapped relief column when, boom, his tank suddenly lurches from a massive blast. They've hit a German mine. So now the lead tank is totally crippled, completely blocking this narrow path. Knowing he literally cannot wait for the rest of his guys to get unstuck, Fleig climbs into the only operable Sherman, tells the others to catch up whenever they can, slams the hatch shut, and just churns forward, completely alone.
Meanwhile, back at the front line, Hazlitt is leading his battered infantry into a village when he suddenly hears an engine. Covered in mud, branches, basically wearing scraps of the forest itself, Fleig's lone Sherman finally rolls into view. Hazlitt runs up to the tank, frantically pointing toward the crest of the hill where that massive Panther, along with the whole column of Panzer IVs, are advancing. Look, Fleig is vastly outnumbered. There's really no way around it, but he just gives a grim nod, and his lone Sherman surges forward to face the entire onslaught.
As the Sherman slowly creeps up onto that crest, Fleig spots the Panther. It's just 200 yards away. Its massive 75mm gun is pointed directly at the retreating American infantry. But crucially, its side is exposed. It's a perfect shot. Fleig doesn't hesitate, instantly calling out the target. Gunner, shot, tank, 200. The gunner sets the target. He fires. The shell cuts right through the freezing air, striking the Panther's side with this brilliant flash.
And you know, this perfectly illustrates a terrifying little micro lesson in tank warfare. Because when that shell hits the Panther, there is zero penetration. None. Just a heavy, completely useless thud. Fleig orders a second shot. Another thud. Nothing happens. A literal chill runs down Fleig's spine as his loader realizes the horrifying truth. In the absolute chaos of swapping tanks back on that mud trail, the previous commander had loaded the ready rack with high explosive shells. Now, high explosive shells are designed for soft targets like infantry. To actually punch through thick German steel, they desperately needed armor-piercing, or AP, rounds. They are firing the completely wrong ammo.
But here's the crazy part. Inside the Panther, those two heavy hits cause absolute panic. Thinking they're about to burn alive, the German crew actually scrambles out. But when the German commander gets outside and sees no fire, he looks through his binoculars and realizes, wait, the Sherman hit them with the wrong ammo. Bailing out was a massive mistake. He starts screaming at his crew to get back inside. Now this blunder buys Fleig a few precious seconds. Inside the Sherman, his loader is desperately hauling up M61 armor-piercing shells from the ammunition rack below. But to do this safely, the Sherman had to rotate its turret away. Back in the Panther, the German driver is revving his engine to build hydraulic pressure. So now, the massive turrets of both these steel war machines begin the slow, agonizing race, turning simultaneously toward each other to get their guns on target.
So it all comes down to who fires first, right? Well, the Panther gets there first. A high-velocity shell erupts from a cloud of fire and literally whistles right over Fleig's turret. It's a miss, barely. The Sherman gunner steadies and fires. In an absolutely impossible 1 in a million shot, the Sherman's AP shell smashes directly into the Panther's gun barrel, splitting the thick steel clean apart. I mean, the big cat is instantly a toothless wreck. Fleig doesn't waste a second. He orders follow-up shots that tear straight into the Panther's hull, igniting it. And just as 3 more Panzer IVs push forward to join the fight, 2 mud-covered Shermans finally crest the hill. Fleig's backups have arrived. Working together, they systematically wipe out the incoming Panzer force, completely halting the German advance right in its tracks.
You'd think that'd be it, but the battle is far from over. Miles away, an escaping Panzer radios in to report the defeat to General Major Siegfried von Waldenberg. And when he hears that he lost several of his top-tier tanks to just a couple of Shermans, Waldenberg's furious. He refuses to hesitate. The numbers suddenly turn staggering. He orders a massive counterforce, 13 Panthers, plus additional Panzer IVs and infantry, with strict orders to burn the American positions completely to the ground. Against all that, the Americans have, well, Fleig's 3 Shermans, joined now by just a handful of M10 tank destroyers led by First Lieutenant Turney W. Leonard.
Facing these totally overwhelming odds, Fleig, Hazlitt, and Leonard get together and formulate this incredibly desperate tactical gamble. With the morning fog starting to roll in, Fleig's 3 Shermans are going to push right up to the crest to draw the fire of the entire German line. While the enemy's attention is entirely fixed on the Shermans, Lieutenant Leonard's M10 tank destroyers will take the long, muddy way around through the mist to flank the German armor. It's an incredibly high-risk maneuver, and it relies entirely on perfect timing and total deception.
To actually pull this off, the Shermans employ a classic American doctrine known as shoot and scoot, and it goes exactly like this. Climb to the crest, fire fast at the target, drop immediately back behind the reverse slope before return fire can land. Up, fire, down. All 3 Shermans are working this exact drill, and they're doing it flawlessly. Because they keep popping up at different points on the ridge, to the Germans down below, it looks like American armor is literally everywhere. The enemy completely takes the bait, pouring tank fire, mortars, and artillery onto the ridge to hit them.
But right as the distraction starts working perfectly, the flanking plan just completely unravels. Leonard's M10s hit that treacherous forest terrain. Suddenly, a massive jolt hits Leonard's vehicle. He's grounded, totally high-centered on a hidden stump. Another M10 loses its traction entirely in the churned-up mud. The whole attack just grinds to this heavy, sluggish halt. And it gets worse. You see, M10s have open-topped turrets, so as soon as the German infantry spots them struggling in the mud, machine gun fire and mortars start raining down inside the vehicles. The tank destroyers are suddenly sitting ducks, blinded by the thick terrain and totally pinned down by heavy fire. And this brings us to a moment of just unimaginable bravery. With absolutely no eyes on the target, Lieutenant Leonard climbs completely out of his stuck M10. He tells his crew to get ready, shouting over the noise that he's going to get them eyes on the target himself. Leonard literally sprints toward the slope under a relentless hail of bullets. He spots the hidden Panzers, but as he turns back, a bullet strikes his arm. Stifling a scream, he pushes the pain down, staggers back to the nearest M10, bangs on the steel hull, and shouts out the coordinates. Haystack, 200 yards, traverse right. The 3-inch gun fires, striking true, and, incredibly, before the smoke even has a chance to clear, Leonard runs right back out into the open to do it again.
Meanwhile, back up on the ridge, the situation for the Shermans is rapidly falling apart. Fleig is watching the stranded M10s, and he knows he has to keep drawing fire to give those guys a fighting chance. But the Germans are dialing in their aim. A shell bursts right in front of one of the Shermans, and the massive shockwave physically jams its turret ring. Moments later, Fleig manages to take out another German tank, but he pays a heavy price when a ricocheting shell slams straight into his own Sherman's turret ring. His gunner yells out that the manual traverse is totally jammed, so now all 3 Shermans are completely crippled, physically unable to rotate their guns to fight back.
Fleig looks over toward Leonard's position, and his heart just drops. He's watching Leonard darting from cover to cover until a German mortar explodes right next to him. Leonard goes down hard. The blast completely shatters his left arm below the shoulder. Medics desperately rush over to him with morphine, insisting they need to move him off the line immediately. But Leonard knows the Germans are closing in fast. Taking medics away from the line to carry him out would doom the others. He just shakes his head, looks at them, and delivers his final, selfless order. Leave me a rifle and get the hell out of here. And you guys, that is the very last time anyone ever sees him alive.
With their armor completely crippled and the ridge basically lost, there is nothing left to do but pull back. Following strict orders to leave absolutely no usable equipment for the enemy, Fleig actually stops one of his crewmen from wiring his tank and just does it himself, tying a live grenade to the hatch to scuttle his own Sherman. The survivors begin descending into a dark, steep gorge. The slopes are super slick with freezing mud, so the men literally form a human chain in the pitch black, keeping one hand on the shoulder or the belt of the man ahead of them just to stay together. But then, the enemy mortars find them. Shells start crashing down into the gorge. The chain breaks. Men are driven blindly into the dark underbrush, and tragically, many of them would never walk out again.
It's around midnight when Lieutenant Fleig and a few totally exhausted soldiers finally stumble into the American assembly area. To put this whole nightmare into perspective, out of the more than 2,200 men of the 28th Bloody Bucket Division who went into that specific fight, little more than 300 made it out alive. Think about that. 300 out of 2,200. The sheer scale of the devastation in the Hürtgen Forest is almost incomprehensible, but it is deeply distilled into that one terrifying statistic.
But, the heroism of that day was absolutely not forgotten. Lieutenant Raymond Fleig survived the war and was awarded the Silver Star for his incredible actions and leadership under unbelievable fire. And First Lieutenant Turney W. Leonard, the man who gave literally everything just to be the eyes for his blinded crewmen, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. For years he was listed as missing, but his body was finally recovered in the forest in 1950, returned home to the U.S., and laid to rest in Dallas, Texas.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. We spend so much time in these explainers analyzing armor thickness, debating high explosive versus armor-piercing shells, and comparing turret traverse speeds. But when the smoke finally clears in the freezing mud of a place like the Hürtgen Forest, is the battle truly decided by the mechanical superiority of the machines, or is it ultimately determined by the unyielding, sacrificial will of the men inside them? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.